So let me wait for you guys to come in. Hey, hey guys. Hello everybody. So I put here the material that we're going to be using today, which is, I'm going to use the medium color for PV clay, but you can choose your own clay, your favorite one. I didn't work with all the clays available, but with the clays I worked with, this is my favorite because of the strength that it gets once it's baked. And also I like working with harder clay, but this is really personal, so try it out and see which is your favorite clay, and you can feel absolutely free to use it to take my classes. Okay, so I'm gonna put this apart, and I'm also using the Jls Skull. So this skull I sculpted myself, and JLS is the store that makes them, like reproduce them and put it available for selling. Okay, but the original sculpting is mine, so the body and head, so it's made in the proportions that I like to work with. And also what I like about that, I ask them is to leave the arms and legs bigger, so you guys are free to cut it and make like short. This is a caricature, so you are absolutely free to play with the shape of it, with the sizes, with the proportions. So feel free to change it and to do your own style. So this is what we're going to be using for the body and for the face. I have here the printed material that is available on the group files for you to print it out. And this is the transparency, okay? Transparency sheet that we are going to be using today. And the eyes. Those eyes are named Emmy color, Emmy green, because I asked the color to be made according to Emmy's eyes. Okay, so they made it especially for us. So to start, we're gonna get this transparency that is on the material, the printing material. We're gonna get it, and if you put your hand, the printing is on the not very smooth side, so you have two sides. You can feel there's kind of like a glue in this one, the size that the printing is made. So I hope you guys printed in the right side, because it gets all blurry if you print the other side. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna use this a lot, and sometimes when you are putting our hands often here, it starts like disappearing. So to avoid that, it can still happen even with the tape, but I'm gonna tape over, so try to do very nicely and avoid bubbles on it. Okay, I got one here, and I got one here. I made two options here, with a skull and without a skull. You guys can choose what you rather work in. I got some folding parts here, it's okay. So you guys can choose whatever you rather working with. I'm gonna start working with the skull ones, but if you're rather working with the other ones, you can. So I'm gonna cut it off, so it's easier for me to hold it. I'm not even gonna put a tape on here right now, I can do that later. I'm gonna cut them individually, so it's easier for me to put all on my skull and see it. So, okay, what do we do with this transparency? I think it's pretty obviously that you probably already figured it out. I'm gonna remove the head of my skeleton because I rather work in just like that. And if you put the transparency over, you can have it a pretty good idea of where everything goes on the sculpture to make Amy Winehouse, okay? So let me show in the other camera here, right here. So this is gonna help us to get everything placed in the right spot, and it's gonna help us like to see how large is the nose, the shape of the nose. So this one with the skull, we can't really see her lips and stuff, but we can see the cut of where is like right here. Let me get a little bit closer. You see right here, you can see the cut. So we can see where her lips are cutted for the first phase, which is pretty much all we need. You can see the shape of the eyebrow, so you can really put it here all the time and make sure that you are doing the perfect job. Okay? So I am gonna start placing the eyes. Okay, so we always need to start like that? No, not at all. There is no rules for sculpting. You have to take your tries and practice and figure out what works the best for you. I like to place the eyes better because it does give me an idea of everything else. So that's my choice. But if you guys want to start with something else after, of course, if you're doing this course with me, try to go with me, and then if you think that you would rather put in the eyes later, so the next sculpture, you put it later and keep on your studies. Something else that I'm going to say, this class will be more specific for likeness. So we are going to be focusing here and do likeness and do a face just like a picture. So I'm not really going to focus on ideal human proportion and stuff like that, but I did put up on my YouTube channel in English a video that talks all about an ideal proportion face. So you guys can just go there. It's all for free. It's all in my YouTube channel, and then you can see how to sculpt a regular face without being over a picture, without having the commitment to look like anybody, but with the ideal human proportions and stuff like that. There is a lot of details about anatomy too, so you can go to my YouTube channel and take a look at these videos. It's for free, available on my YouTube channel. So here we're gonna focus in likeness. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little bit of clay inside the eyes, and something that I really need to be careful here is I don't need to put a lot of clay, and I really need to press it in and avoid air between the skull and the clay. Why? Because if you have air inside between the clay and the skull, once you put in the oven, it's going to expand, and the heat with the air expanding, it needs to get off. And then it gets off through the clay because it's still soft. And before the clay gets harder in the oven, it gets soft and then harder. So when it's softer, the air comes out, and then on the way out, it makes little bubbles that you don't want in your sculpture. So press it in very well, and then you are going to place the eye here. See how the depth, I can't say that word in English, depth. I don't like that word. But you check on the depth of the eye, and if it's too much inside, you add a little bit of more clay. If it's too much outside, you press it in, and probably you can do it. If it's still too hard to press it in, take it off, get a little bit of clay out until you find the right depth for your eye. So to know the depth, we're going to use this transparency. So that's why I start with the skull shape on my sculpture here and not with the other one, because something important is every time that you look to your piece, you have to see the same thing, right? So I'm going to put the red spots. So this red here is the orbit. So is this right here. And I also put this bone to guide us to put in the right spot. So you're going to put right there. Look through it and see if the eye is having the same depth as hers. Why do you need to do that? Because we are all different. We do have an ideal proportion, that is the eye touching the bone line here, but not all of us have the ideal proportion. So some of us have the eyes a little bit more popped out. Some of us have a deeper eye. So when you're doing someone, you have to look for exactly the same depth. This is very important to change the shape of the face for the likeness. If you have a person with the eye very deep and you put it outside, you are not going to have the same result. You are not going to have the same face. You can have the same nose, the same mouth, the same everything, but you're going to look at and you won't see the same eyes, the same look that the person looks to us. It changes a lot. So that depth is really important to get it right. Okay? So I'm not going to look for my perfect depth right now. I'm just going to put the other eye here. And also with the transparency, it's good because you can just flip it and look for the both sides. Our profile in the reality is not perfect. Our profile, if you look one side and the other, it's different. It's never exactly the same. But for working with a sculpture, I just choose one profile and I do the same for both sides. Okay, I don't go for the differences. Sometimes in a sculpture, it can look like a mistake and not like reality. So that I just look for the same one, so I just flip it. Okay, so let me put the other eye here. So I'm going to look for the right depth. See if it's all okay. Something else that I want to tell you guys here when you're looking for the depth and when you're looking for the picture is the way that you're going to look to your sculpture to find the likeness. Guys, this might look silly, this might look not important, but it is one of the most important thing to find likeness, is the way that you're going to look to your sculpture. Why is that? Because if you're looking for likeness, every time that you look to your piece, you must have the same information. You can't look to your piece one time and see something, and then when you look again, you see something different. It might look really obvious for people that understand math here, but it's not obvious for everybody, so I'm going to talk about that very deeply. So when you look to your sculpture, if you look like this, you're going to have, like in this angle, let's talk about angle now. So if you're looking like in this angle, you're going to have one information. So let me put my, for example, if you put like this, you're going to have one information, right? If you move and look in other angle with your eyes, look, it changes the information. So it changes the size of it. So every time that you're looking to your skull, to your pictures, if you're using this, of course, I made it easier because I put the skull here, and that was made because of all these mistakes that I see my students making through the time. So I learned how to I figured out a way that the students won't have a problem with that, that's why I made this red spot, so you can just place in there and it must to match the red with the skull, so that makes you always have the same information. But a lot of the times we won't be looking here, we're gonna look here. A lot of the times we will do that, we will do this, we will do this, and you always have to look to your piece in the same way and get the same information. So what does that mean? That means that I'm gonna make here a drawing. So this is the table and this is your sculpture. Okay, profile of a sculpture, let's say. This is the right way that you have to look to it if you're comparing to something. Your eyes must be 90 degrees for you to look at it. Always 90 degrees. So if you're comparing with a paper under you here, you go for 90 degrees and you will always get the same information. Why? If you look here, if you don't use the 90 degree and you look here, you're going to have a different information if you look to a different angle. So if you choose this angle to look at her, you will always, every time you look at it, you will have to find the same angle, which is pretty much impossible to find this angle exactly the same. But 90, it's possible because you just have to be looking for the square angle, so it makes it easier. So every time you're going to look for it, make sure to do that. A lot of times I even give to my students like a roll of paper so they can look through it. They put the roll of paper in 90 degrees and they can look through it, because a lot of them forget to do that, and then they keep getting the wrong information, the different information every time they look to the piece. So make sure to always look to your piece in 90 degrees. Okay, this I have a question here because I'm also live streaming right now. So I have a question. One of the students is asking me to show how I made this red skull here. So what you do is you take a picture of the skull. I can do it. I can put the red available for you guys empty without anything in the background too. I can just put it available for you to use it. But if you don't have this, you can take a picture like in 90 degrees of the skull, and then you put it on Photoshop and draw it over in a second layer. So all the time look to your piece in 90-degree angle. So for this one, the profile one, I noticed that some points gets a little bit bigger than my drawing, my skull, but I'm gonna be worried to match, as I said before, when I match the profile, I'm gonna be matching this and this bone. So I'm not gonna worry about the size of the head here. If it's not matching, it's not matching. So let's do, what else do we have to worry about the eyes? So depth, see if it's right, if it's matching her depth, and right distance between the eyes. So here I found the only picture I found that she is very straight. It's actually very hard to find Amy Winshaw's frontal picture. I had to search a lot to find it, and this one is not even absolutely perfect, but it's good enough. So, and she's looking straight. So for this class, to make it easier, we're just going to make our sculpture also looking straight. So we have this information right here. We don't need to place the eyes different. When you're sculpting and you want to put your person looking to different places, like looking to the sides or looking up or looking down, the easiest way to do it's do your pictures, work with your reference already with the person looking to the position that you want. So that makes it way easier for you to follow the look. Okay? So what am I going to do here is I'm going to place the teeth. You see the teeth is always easier. Here my maxillar, this one's open, this one's closed, but I'm not worried about the bottom part. I'm going to match the frontal teeth with the skull right there. And I'm going to hold it. And then I'm going to look for the eyes to be in exactly the same position as hers. So mine are a little bit lower. So I'm going to place it higher. And sometimes the person has it so different that you might need to cut the eye a little bit, which is okay because it's made out of resin. If you need to cut your eyes, go ahead and cut it. Don't feel sorry for it. You can trim a little bit. Here I just need to put a little bit up. So I have to match everything else in here. And the teeth. And the eyes, her eyes are very close together here. More than average. So also I will move them to be more together. So take your time here. Take a lot of time if you need to, but try to put her eyes matching exactly the spot that is matching here. So match the teeth, match the eye cavity, and look for the iris to be matching exactly her iris right here. So don't worry about wasting your time. Waste your time here. Do it perfectly, because if you don't do it, you have to change that after, and it's way harder. Okay? So you match here, and you match the depth. And then obviously you're going to look for her without, to also use your artistic skills to make sure she's not crossed eyes, she's all good. And once you have the eyes placed in the right spot, we can go for the next step. Okay, so here I already took my time and worked to get the eyes in the same position. And once you find the right position, it's good that you kind of fill up with clay around. Like this. And also this is going to help to keep the eye in the right position and also avoid the bubbles, the air bubbles under the eyes. So let me show you guys. Look, if I put the teeth matching and the nose matching. And if I look 90 degrees, I have the eyes placed right there, here. And with the profile, what happens is that this drawing is exactly the same size of this, but because there's volume on the side here, if it's kind of like get bigger because it's farther. So because of this volume, you're not going to be able to match fully the skull. So I'm matching the orbit and the bone. And once I match the orbit and the bone and put 90 degrees, it's also matching right there as depth. So when we are working likeness, not always we can use the skull the way it comes for the jaw. Because some people has the bite, they bite with the teeth more backwards, like farther to the back or to the front. It changes, right? So when you're working likeness, a lot of the times you kind of have to remove the jaw and replace it. So I'm going to remove here. When you're working, making a person that it's not somebody, you don't have to do that. You can just use the way it is in there. But if you are working likeness, the best thing to do is taking it out. So that's easier, so we can put the right bite. One thing that I want to show you guys is Amy Winehouse. She has a very small chin on the side profile, so you can see here that her chin line is smaller than our skull bone. Okay? So we're gonna have to cut a little bit the bone here because it will not fit. She has a very, very small chin comparing to average. So you see here on her profile how it goes all the way back here, and usually people have it in line, so she has a little bit inside. So that's a nice characteristic already that we can see that it's not like average. So this, we can use that in our favor. So I'm going to replace the jaw. I'm going to put a little bit of clay here. She won't be smiling or anything, so her teeth can be touching each other and be all closed. So I'm going to put clay here and place the jaw closing. And once I place there, I can just fill up all in here to make sure it will be very well, holding very well here. Okay, so this is what we need. Okay, so I'm gonna trim the chin now. Let's see how much I have. It's not a lot, it's a little bit. So I just come with a knife. You guys can see I use the knife like that because I'm a bad person. You guys can use with the regular thing. It's just I use the lamina a lot to do this and to cut. So I just have it like that and I do that. But I cut myself all the time, so don't do like that. Just be a good person and do the right way. Don't follow me on that one. Okay, so I'm just trimming a little bit. You can also use sand to do that, or a sand machine. I have this that works really good. So this is a Dremel. It's very, very good, very, very efficient for sculpting. So if I turn on this and just sand it here, it's going to be really, really fast. So if you have one of these, go ahead and do it. If you don't, just use a knife, cut it, and you can also use a regular sand to do it. Okay? So you don't need to go crazy and buy a Dremel because it's doable without it. So her chin is a little bit recessed. My student is teaching me English right now, Mary Jane. So that's why I'm cutting. So I'm going to go ahead here and cut it. I'm going to show you guys how the Dremel also works. Great here. So every time you're going to work with Dremel, make sure that you get your clay away because it gets dusty and it's going to get your clay all dirty if you don't move it away. I don't know if I have battery to show. Oh, I do. Lucky me. So just go here and see? That was great. Alright guys, so you see when we are working likeness, we all have different skulls as well. So this is an average skull, and we also female skull are different of male skulls. When we are doing likeness, you will have to check on your person and your skull and remove parts that are not fitting. So if I look to her drawing, I'm going to put in a white paper. It makes it easier for you guys to see. So you can also look in your printing right there. So that's the chin line here. Hers is a little bit recessed. See? So you just need to cut a little bit of here. And now I'm going to place it there and test. Well, I can't really test like that because, as I said, it's bigger because it's farther away from the beginning. But it's alright. You can always work a little bit bigger. It's not a problem. Or if you're having problems doing that, you can make it smaller on the print and then reprint smaller if you think it's important. So we have the chin done, and now we're going to go for the next step. That is, we're going to cover the skull with skin. Okay, so I open my clay here with my pasta machine on number 1. So the skinnier one, thinner one. And I am going to cover my skull. Why do I need it to be so thin, the clay? Because I don't want to lose the skull shape still. I still want to be able to see the shape of it. So I go with the thinner layer. And I'm going to place in here. And starting from the nose, I'm going to start pressing down, making sure that it won't have air between the skull and the bone, and the clay. I mean the bone and the clay. Well, not bone, resin. But you see how it's thin, and I can see the eye shape. I can see this bone here pretty well over the eye, forehead. Keep on pressing, and then when I come to the tempora, because there's a hole in there, you have to kind of press it in very nicely here, so there's no air. You can also cover that before you put the skull, but because I'm teaching, usually I put some clay here and here to cover that up, but because I'm teaching, I really still want you guys to see the skull underneath, to see exactly what I'm doing. So once you get used to this, used to the skull, you can just cover it before, and you don't need to see like all the little details. Here in the nose, the hole, I also have to cover it and make sure it's gonna be stuck in there. This drill machine is called Dremel. It's a mini, I don't know the name in English. I know in Portuguese because Dremel is actually the brand. Yeah, but the Dremel is the brand of it. You have other brands, but the most known and most used is the Dremel one. So here, see, I'm going forward and doing really way skinnier than I actually need, but because I want the students to be able to still see the skull. Okay, when I am working myself on the skull, I cover that up with clay, cover that up, cover the nose up, and then I don't need to go so crazy to see all the details like that. But you won't need to do that once you get used to it too. So if you have more experience and you already have all the proportions kind of like inside your brain, because it does get inside your brain, and you naturally start getting the right proportions even without measuring. Once you practice, that's why you start getting faster and faster, because things just get inside your brain. Okay, and here I'm not going to worry about right now. I'm just going to leave it like that, and I'm going to worry about that way later, because this is even good for me to keep like be able to hold it on, and I'm just not going to let bubbles. But here I can still hold on that, hold on here, and it's going to help me like this. So I like leaving this excessive clay still here. Rotary tool. That's the name of that Dremel. That is not the brand. Rotary tool. So there you go. MG always helping here. I think I have a secretary or live translation. Is that how you say? Well, there you go. So I can see the eyes, you see? I can see them just right there. And now I'm going to start cutting eyes and mouth. So to do that, I'm going to put this here. I can't see up and down. Oh, I actually even can see that, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to show in the camera, but I can see here. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to worry more about the nose hole right there. I can see the orbit of the eyes, and I'm going to try to cut that where her eyes are connected together. So the center of the eye here and the center of the eye here, I make a line. Oops. Right there, right there. So it's right here. It's kind of right. It doesn't need to be so perfect, but following her measurements as much as I can. Just cut. And then once I cut, I'm going to start opening. Be careful if you have a pointy tool like I do right now. Don't do like this, because resins can get damaged. So if you press it too strong, you might damage the eye underneath. So be careful. Gentle cut using the tool on the side position like that. So you don't scratch it. And slowly, gently start opening. So you can see the iris. What I want right now is see the iris. I'm not going to look for a shape at all. I'm just going to look for being able to see the iris. So I can give the shape of the eyes according to the iris. So you open. You don't need to open all the way to get her eyes, but right now you will do that next step. But right now you just need to open enough to see the iris, and then you're going to keep on using your transparency, and we're going to start also measuring this with the original picture, because transparency can be hard to see sometimes. Some people cannot use this transparency, so I'm just going to make sure to teach you guys without it as well. So you don't need to worry about symmetry right now or shape of the eyes or any like that. You just need to see the iris. So if you're not being able to see it all, you can open a little bit more. So right here I can't really see the top of it. I'm going to start opening and open the bottom. So I can see almost the full iris, not all the iris, because of course, obviously, it's going to be covered anyway, but almost the full iris, so I can match up this iris with my transparency again. Okay, and then I am going to be able to see if I'm giving the right shape to the eyes. Alright, so it's good enough. I can see it. And now we're going to start giving the eye the right shape. It doesn't need to be already the perfect shape, because once we are sculpting, we can always go back and fix something that we noticed. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the same picture that I have in my transparency which is this one. It's kind of blurry though. But yeah, I had a hard time finding Amy Winehouse frontal pictures. That was the best one I found. If you guys find another one, you can absolutely print in the right size and use it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this tool. I forgot the name in English, but it does have in my list, in the material list. I absolutely forgot the name. I know in Portuguese it's paquímetro, and I know in English you can call pachymeter, but it's not very useful. There's another name that you guys use and I forgot. But anyways, you know what is the tool. I'm going to put, you can also use is that a compass? The one that you make circles. Anything that you can open and measure the distance and then you measure in there. Anything that you use it, it's fine. You just need to keep the same size here. So I'm going to measure here. The corner of the eye, the inside corner of the eye, I'm going to place my tool in there and the two corners and measure this distance here as more faithful as I can with it. And I'm going to put in here. So see, I get the size of her eyes. I'm going to press it down and it's already in there. And I'm going to bring the cut of the eye all the way to the mark that I just made. Alright, now I'm going to measure. Measuring calipers. Caliper? Yes, that's my student is giving me all the information I need in English. That's awesome. So here I'm going to measure these corners here, the outside corners. Trying to be very faithful with it. And I'm going to place in here. Always put in the nose in the center, okay? So bring the nose to the center of it and mark it. So mine is a little bit bigger, actually. No, it's right in there, a little bit bigger. So I can bring it in a little bit here. Right there and right there. So to find the right shape of the eyes, I have some tips here. You will have to use your eyes a lot and your observation skills, which don't worry because observation skills also grows with practice. But one thing that you can do to help you out is, well, you can use the transparency, but not always you can absolutely see well with the transparency. You can have a very good idea, but some people can't. So I know that because of all the other students I had. So one good way for you to don't mess up the eye shape of the person that you're doing is, I have another picture here, another printing. So I'm going to keep one for showing you how the things, and I'm going to use this one to mess up. To draw over and do everything I need. So what I do here is, to get the right shape, I make a line in the center. I do it imaginary, okay, so I don't really draw on my eye, I do it in my mind. So here I'm gonna draw what I imagine, and you guys can try to imagine that too. So I make a line in the center of the eye and another one in the center right here. Right? And then I make one on the sides here for the eye size right here, and another one in the corner. So it's kind of like, you know, when you have to do a drawing and you use squares to find the right shape. So this is what I do in my mind. So here in this corner that we have marked right there, I'm gonna measure this size, also using the transparency to make sure that is in the right line, because she does have this space a little bit bigger than average, so we do have to keep that on her. And I go for the drawings like this, so I see this corner have a little bit of a curve here, it keeps on going, and the most open part of her eyes is right in the center. That doesn't happen to all the eyes. Eyes have pretty specific shape, so you really have to follow through it. So follow this information with the square. So split the eyes in as many lines as you need. And if you do need the drawing, so print her eyes bigger and do those squares so you can kind of transfer this information to your sculpture. And then this line, it's kind of like rounded to here, and then it comes down here, and then you go and follow all the line shape. So I'm going to draw another one here. So you get an eye. Eyes have very different shapes of each other. We are going to be concerned about just this line right now. We're not going to be concerned about this line or this line here. Just the shape, the first shape. So you make a line in the center, you make a line in the corner, share in 3 parts, or in 2 parts, 3 lines share in 2 parts. Make a line right here, make a line right here. And if you need, you can also do more lines, as much as you need, and then you can see where in this, the space that it touches here, and then you can work on this contour very, very well if you do that. Okay? So I am not gonna draw this on her face. I will do that in my imagination, in my head. If you guys need me to draw on her face, you can let me know and I can do it. But this is just how I look to the eyes and how I train my observation skills. Okay, so there you go. I'm gonna look at her, look at my eye, look to those imaginary lines and follow this shape right now. So it's a little bit more rounded here, and then I can always confirm my measurements with my, what's the name of that, caliper, or with my transparents. It also helps. So work on her eye shape here. And also something that I forgot to mention, let me get that drawing back again. Something that I forgot to mention that is important is we have the iris. So also use the iris, right? We have our iris and it's placed in the right spot. So also measure this line in the iris, where in the circle this line is touching here and here, here and here, where this line is touching. If it's like right after the big curve, if it's more here, down here, some eyes get it more like here, some eyes get more higher, and then here some eye line cover the bottom part, some eye leave a little bit of space in here. So make sure to notice, to observe all these details and put on your eye. So I also use the iris as a guide as well. I forgot to mention that. Alright, so let's do this. And I'm gonna try to do as much as I can. Oh, obviously, I will not need to find this exact shape right now because I have all the time during my sculpting to change that until it's baked. So just do that, and always make sure I do that naturally now, so sometimes I forget to mention that you need to press down these corners here. They need to be deeper than this part. Alright, so if you need, before you shape it, you can press down here and here. This is in my class for average faces. So make sure that if you look in this direction, it's rounded, right? Because this is covering a ball, so it needs to be as rounded as the eyeball. And what I can see for her eyes is that this part here, it goes down quite a bit right here. It gets this area very open and almost doesn't touch her iris. This corner touches a little bit, the bottom part touches, like cover it a little bit, but when you get to this part of the iris, you can see it's pretty much not even touching. So I'm gonna transfer this information to here. And then again, I start getting her eye shape pretty good. Here also, if you look to the iris, here it covers a lot. Here almost doesn't cover it because her eyes open big here too. So it opens big here, it opens big here. So let's open big here. It's very rounded here, in this area here. So try to get, you don't need perfection right now, try to kind of get like a sketch of her eye look, because you're going to be, you're going to have easier, it's going to be easier for you to recognize the shape once you have more details of her face as well. Okay, so I think you got enough, and then you can always come here back and look with your transparency to see if you got it too much, if you didn't get enough. And also you can measure again with your tool, measuring tool, measure if you got this, you go for the larger open part here, measure it. You go for the larger open part here and measure it. So it's kind of exactly right. So as I said, with time you kind of get these measurements just by looking at it. And if you still don't have this skill because you're just a beginner, and you're still on your practice, so use your tool. Don't be afraid to use your tool and measure and measure and measure and measure and measure and get exhausted by measuring, and you're gonna find the right shape, I'm sure. Okay, something else like human that is that this is more in front than this one, so the bottom is a little bit deeper here, so you can go deeper. So I have enough here. I don't need to go bigger with that. That's enough for the beginning. Okay, let me get closer. Put her eyes right here so you guys can see it better. See, I'm pretty close. Might not be perfect, but I think I'm pretty close here. So now I just have to do the same thing with the other side. Find the both eyes shape. So I'm gonna fast forward here in the editing videos while I'm finding this shape, so you guys don't get bored with the same informations. And if you do want to see the full class without fast forwarding, without losing anything, you can watch the live stream version, that it's the full class in there. So if you rather, you have the two options. So I'm doing exactly the same here, just looking for the right shape. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with that. I might still change during the process. I'm gonna keep on observing, and sometimes we just click and like, oh, okay, this is wrong here, let me fix. It happens a lot during the process, so I'm not concerned in changing and keep on looking. But for right now, I think I'm happy with that. And let's go for the next step. Okay, guys, so the next thing that we're gonna do here, we're gonna do the cut and open the mouth. Okay, so for that, you can use this transparency, which you can see the cut of the lips better in here than in here, because this one is kind of covered by the red drawing. But if you can still see here, you can use that one too. So it's up to you. And if you don't like to use the transparency, you can just come here and measure the corner of the eye and the cut of the lip here. You measure this one, and you measure this one. It's the same. Sometimes we're not very symmetrical, so sometimes it's not the same. But you can always still keep the same, and don't do the asymmetrical parts on our faces. You don't really have to use it, but if you want, you can. And we're gonna put on the corner of the eye here and measure the cut, and here measure the cut. I deformed the eye a little bit here, but it's okay. Just fix it. Sometimes using this side of it helps better, because it's the same thing. So once you measure that, you also will measure this, the two corners of the mouth. Like, see, the problem is this picture is not absolutely frontal, I think, so it kind of doesn't get in the center here. So that's what I said, I had a very hard time finding a good frontal picture, because it has to kind of show you the shape of the face, the two eyes, and she always have hair in front of her eyes, so it's hard. So you just put in here, you try to find the center, Put the lips in the center and mark it. So once you mark it, you just come and cut. On the measurement. And you have kind of like a mouth now. Okay, so that's it for the first class. You guys can work on this until the next week. And see you all next class. Bye bye.